Thank you, everyone. It's lovely to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. My name is Francisco, as it's been mentioned, and I come from Finland. I work as a campaigner for the Wolf Action Group. And our work is focused on giving information to the general public about the role of predators for the health of ecosystems in order to reduce fear and hate of these animals. And we also do political advocacy work to raise the legal status of these animals. To give you a little bit of historical context, this graph shows you the rapid decline in terms of wolf numbers in Finland, starting in the middle of the 19th century. These are the amounts of wolves that were shot by hunters. And you can see they are in the thousands. And in the middle of the 19th century, there was many sociological problems in Finland that led to a policy of extermination. It was officially promoted to shoot wolves. And there was even a system of bounties that money was paid for people to shoot wolves. So pretty much anyone, anywhere, anytime, could shoot a wolf on sight. And after that episode, you can see that the recovery of the wolf population has been really difficult. It has been pretty much a stagnant population. Coming to more recent times, this graph shows you how our wolf population has evolved in Finland, and we have oscillated between 100 to 300 wolf individuals, which is a very, very small wolf population for such a big country. The latest estimate is that we have around 28 family groups, plus 3 of them in the border between Russia and Finland. So this makes around 300 individuals. The current classification by the Finnish Red List is endangered. And in spite of this classification, wolves are being hunted. A very recent report from last year from the Natural Resources Institute showed that the Finnish wolf population is suffering from severe genetic problems. And the genetic viability is not secure even for the short term. And in Finland, as well as in Sweden, and in general in Scandinavia, unfortunately, we have a really big problem of poaching. Illegal killing of predators is the biggest cause of mortality. And the willingness of authorities for doing something about it is really low. But when Finland joined the European Union in 1995, the local national legislation had to be adapted to the European legislation, and this meant that wolves became strictly protected. So member states of Europe have now a legal obligation to establish a system of strict protection to prohibit deliberate killing. In other words, hunting as a normal activity, as we all know, it cannot happen for these animals who are strictly protected. This prohibition also contemplates certain exceptions when there are some conflict situations that then it is possible to request an exceptional permit to shoot individual animals. And these permits are called derogations, and we will use this term from now on. But derogations, they have certain requirements that have to be complied before they are granted. First one is that non-lethal alternatives have to be used, tried, or at least effectively contemplated before deciding on granting any legal permits. And all the information as proof for the issuing of any hunting license has to be of scientific quality. It has to be scientific evidence proving why hunting is the only effective solution. At the same time, any decision to kill protected species has to be limited in number and selective to the particular animals that are causing the conflict. And last but not least, the decision has to have neutral or positive effects on the conservation status of the population. And we also have to talk about the local status of the conservation, not just national. This is a map of the current distribution of the European wolf populations. In dark green, you can see the permanent wolf territories. And in lighter green, you can see the sporadic wolf territories where wolves can be found. Of course, this is just a map of area distribution. This does not relate to the amount of wolves. Currently, we have only about 12,000 wolves in the whole of Europe. So just to put this into perspective, this is even less than the population of a small town. And this is in the whole of Europe. You can see that there are many, many empty areas in Europe, especially in Britain, France, Spain, and the north of Scandinavia. So regarding the criteria for granting derogations, and given our political advocacy work, we realized that the authorities didn't have evidence if these conditions for derogation were actually being followed. Pretty much nobody knew if non-lethal alternatives were being used or not before shooting these animals. So in 2017, we decided that we would collect this kind of evidence. We actually met with different authorities talking about if they actually had proven evidence of that the law was being followed. And this led us to take the matter in our own hands, and we produced a report called Keeping the Wolf from the Door that was coordinated by biologist Mervi Laaksonen. She is a well-respected scientist in Finland who is also a writer, and she has written about wolves extensively. And together with Mervi and many members of the Wolf Action Group, we put together this investigative report of how derogations for hunting wolves were granted in Finland. And we wanted to answer the two basic questions. Are alternatives being used as the law requests? Are they really exceptional? And if the hunting permits are granted, are they granted according to the letter and the spirit of the law? So these were the main questions we wanted to answer by collecting the evidence. You can download the report from PDF, or if anyone wants a copy, I have one here for you. So in total, for a normal hunting year, we analyzed 69 applications for shooting wolves. These are very long and repetitive documents, and boring, I must say. For the whole of Finland, you can see in different colors where are the parts of Finland where most of the permits were requested, and you can see they are mostly towards the north. And Finland has a particular situation in which the north of Finland, which is considered the Lapland, is granted a special legal status for dealing with predators. And this is because in Lapland, there is the reindeer herding industry. So they have a special treatment by European legislation, which allows them to, not as an exceptional measure, to shoot predators on site. And then the rest is called, we call it south of Finland for our study. And pretty much in this part of Finland, an exception is shooting a wolf must be the last resort, always an exception. And in terms of the permits granted, you can see that for the reindeer herding area, pretty much all of the requested permits were granted. 27 out of 28 were positive. And in the case of southern Finland, 28 permits were granted of 41. So quite a big amount, 69 wolves shot in a year. And this is a strictly protected species. So The results of the investigation showed that the main reasons, the biggest reason for shooting wolves in Finland nowadays is fear. People claiming to be afraid of wolves. But this doesn't mean that wolves have been seen. We found that many reports mentioned that just having seen the tracks, the prints on the snow of wolves, that was enough reason for people to request hunting wolves. Fear was mentioned in quite the majority of the applications, as well as harms to hunting. And harms to hunting means that people who hunt for recreational purposes, they felt their activity was compromised because of the presence of wolves. Either higher mobility of the game animals, or higher vigilance of the animals they are planning to shoot. So it makes it more difficult for them to hunt. At the same time, you can see on the 5th column, it mentions damages to dogs. And this means that dogs using for recreational hunting purposes, they had been either attacked or in conflict with the presence of predators. And this is by far the biggest frustration from recreational hunters, that they cannot use their tracking dogs because of the presence of predators. But many other excuses were given for requesting hunting permits for wolves. And you can see at the very end, it mentions harms to game animals, harms to, for example, forest reindeer. But we have to keep in mind the numbers we are talking about. For example, the moose population, we have almost 100,000 moose in Finland compared to 300 wolves. But still, this was used as a reason for shoot wolves. And one important reason for also requesting hunting permits was school transportation. And this means that people, because they are afraid that their children walking to school will be attacked by wolves, they organize wolf taxis, as they are called. And they claim that the expenses are too high and the inconveniences are quite many, that shooting the animals is an easier solution. So to answer the first question, are non-lethal alternatives being used before hunting wolves? These are the results we found. For the 41 applications for the southern part of Finland, 22 of them mentioned as the non-lethal alternative just organizing school transports. Half of them mentioned organizing the school rides for the kids. 19 of them, half of them, mentioned trying to scare away the wolves. Only half of them. But they don't mention how long this was tried, or they don't mention which were the techniques they used. No details, just very vague information. Only 15 of those 41 applications mentioned using protective fences to protect their livestock, their farm animals. Only 15. But they don't mention the quality of those fences. So we went into the field and took some visual evidence, and these are the kinds of fences we are talking about. Really low, pretty traditional wire fences. They are not electrified, they are not predator-proof fences. So any animal can jump through these protective fences. And authorities are not checking this on the field. Hunting permits are being granted without checking the claims of the applicants. And last but not least, from the 41 applications, 6 of them didn't even mention any alternatives. And 2 of these permits without alternatives being tried, they were granted. So the top reasons for granting shooting permits for wolves in Finland, first of all, free grazing reindeer. We have to keep in mind that Lapland is pretty much predator-free. It's an area that comprises 30% of the Finnish territory that is basically destined for raising reindeer. So it's, in other words, a reindeer factory farm. Not to mention the unsustainability of this industry. Nowadays, it is estimated that there are around 300,000 reindeer in Finnish Lapland, and you can double that if you consider the Swedish Lapland, and triple that if you consider Norwegian area. The second most important reason why wolves are being persecuted in Finland is because of conflicts with tracking dogs. And this is what brings up the most strong emotions from the recreational hunting community, that they lose dogs to wolves and other predators. And also that wolves take some of the animals that hunters would like to kill. But to put things into perspective, only 0.1% of the deaths of tracking dogs are due to wolves. 12.5%, for example, are due to traffic accidents, but this is never mentioned. It's always focusing on wolves. At the same time, to have an idea of the scale of the situation, we have 300 wolves, but we have 83,000 registered tracking dogs. And these are registered ones. There are many, many more that are not registered. So we are talking about more than 100,000 tracking dogs versus 300 strictly protected wolves in Finland. And as we mentioned before, the population of so-called game animals are in the thousands. 82,000 moose, 125,000 white-tailed deer, and so on. So this gives us a picture, which are the strictly protected species. It seems moose and tracking dogs are the strictly protected ones. And the third main reason is fear of wolves. People claim to be afraid of them, as we said before, but also they claim that wolves are not afraid of humans. They call them tame wolves. And this is apparently a problem. Wolves have to be afraid of humans. And there have been some terms coming up. For example, yard wolves, in Finnish it's pihasusi, which gives an idea in the collective imaginary that wolves only live in the people's yards, which is a very inaccurate image. There's also the term bold wolves, which has been used by scientists to define wolves that are not afraid of humans, tolerate humans, and approach humans. But this is not the case in the big majority of the applications. And of course, we always forget that there has been no recorded attacks of wolves on humans in the last 100 years in Europe. And that even bees are more dangerous to humans than wolves. You have 25 times, you are more likely to die of a bee sting than a wolf, 25 times more. So the second question, are the hunting licenses given according to the legislation? This is some of what the current authorities are saying. Derogations, hunting licenses for wolves are not a management tool. They are the last resort, the very last exception. Fear is not a scientific reason. Fear is a subjective emotion, and it shouldn't qualify as scientific evidence for derogating the strict protection of a species. Habituation is not bold behavior. In fact, wolves are very adaptive and curious animals. It is quite normal for them to roam around residential areas. And you could even say that it's necessary that wolves tolerate humans because we live in human-dominated landscapes. So if we want to bring back wild animals, they need to tolerate humans because we are everywhere. So habituation does not equate dangerous behavior from wild animals. On the contrary, it's a prerequisite if we want to rewild nature. At the same time, legislation, the European Court of Justice has said that the intrinsic risks to hunting, like losing tracking dogs to predators, this doesn't qualify as a valid cause for shooting predators. And the decrease of harvest of game animals doesn't qualify either as a valid reason for derogating. At the same time, the strict protection of animals continues to apply even when they are found near human settlements. And this has been ratified by the European Court of Justice, but still the politician in turn keeps using this same argument. The security of people comes first. But what does the science say? The science, the solid and serious science says that if authorities really want to tackle the fear of people towards predators, this can be really effectively done with credible information. Participants in many different studies have found that the information is credible and it comes from a trustworthy source. Their feelings of fear and decreased sense of security, they decrease dramatically. And also there is also a very, very important notion that goes around society. And this is that wolves need to be routinely shot or hunted for them to keep fear of humans. But many scientists have shown that this notion has no scientific basis. This is just a belief. It's not proven by serious science. Also, Finnish scientists have said that the best way to protect farm animals is having a stable wolf pack, because this wolf group, they will keep other inexperienced young wolves away from these farm animals. And another notion that keeps being mentioned quite often in conservation organizations is that the populations of predators need to be kept in check by humans, that we need hunting of predators to keep their populations under control. But this is also being proven a notion, a false belief, because predators, they have inbuilt self-regulation mechanisms. So they know how to keep their population numbers in check for their own benefit and for the benefit of ecosystems. And the last example of what the current science is saying that I want to mention to you, this was a very big and important study that was done by a group of experts for the European Parliament in the very recent years. And they show very clearly that hunting of predators is ineffective and even counterproductive to reducing livestock attacks. So the evidence is clear. What now we have to do is to translate all this into policy. So what do we need? This is my last slide. What are the advocacy priorities that we need to focus on? First of all, any conservation of wild animals has to be done by experts. The current situation in Finland, and I know in Sweden, I will be quick, it's that conservation is done by hunting amateurs. Recreational hunters who hunt as a hobby, they are the ones in charge of managing predator populations. And they do this because they enjoy it. They kill these animals because they get pleasure from it. It's a hobby, it's a tradition in their own view, but this is done basically for pleasure. So the first thing we have to really raise awareness about is that recreational hunting is not conservation. Conservation has to be done because of ecological principles, because of biological principles, and also because attending to the social sciences. Nowadays, we don't live in the 19th century. We have technology, we have technical means, we have financial means to protect nature. So most of all, conservation nowadays has to include the ethical side. It cannot continue that we are just talking about numbers and species. We have to include concern for the welfare of the individuals. The individual animal matters. The right to exist matters. At the same time, joining with the topic of this conference, it is very important that we raise the protection of species and habitats on the same level of importance as dealing with climate change. They are equally important, but the current situation is that all the funding and all the media attention is going to climate change without taking into account that these are two processes that feed each other. If we don't protect biodiversity, then nature will not be able to deal with the extra stress from climate change. Forest will not be there to absorb all the extra greenhouse gases. At the same time, we have to bring light on the current situation in Scandinavia, not just Finland, which is that farmers and hunters, they have a monopoly on the political decision-making for how to treat wildlife, okay? People in the positions of power, they are representing only the hunting and farming lobbying interests. So any decision-making, it has to be built on consensus. And also it has to take into account that the majority of us, we don't hunt. They are the minority. But there's good news, which is that coexistence with wolves and predators is possible. And it has been shown in more than 80 live projects. And these are projects funded by the European Commission. So we know that it's possible technically and financially. What we need now is a change of attitude. What we need now is political will. And my last point, which is also good news for us, is that polls show that the majority, the big majority of EU citizens, they want wolves to be protected and they don't support recreational hunting. So with all this, I think it's fair enough to say that recreational hunting belongs to the past and that there are no good reasons to continue killing wild animals. There's only just bad excuses. You can see this, the latest poll done by Eurogroup for Animals, which shows how the overwhelming majority of people supports wolf protection. And I want to thank you with this last slide, which is an image from our coexistence campaign, which tries to change the belief system of people and to see wolves under a positive light, and to have the functioning ecosystems and protection of our wildlife as a source of national pride. And I want to say that for me personally, animal rights, animal liberation is the task of our generation. I think this is the biggest challenge of humanity. Not only because saving the animals' lives is the right thing to do, but because by saving animals, we will be saving ourselves. Thank you.